You're watching The Legal Breakdown. Okay, we're at a huge moment right now. Closing arguments are officially over, so we're going to get into what to expect now regarding jury deliberation and the possibility of a conviction. But first, if you're not yet subscribed and you want to stay on top of what happens in this trial the moment that it breaks, please make sure to subscribe. Okay, so Glenn, walk us through what happened in closing arguments today and who you believe came out on top.
Yeah, Brian, by all accounts, I was trying to follow the reporting coming out of the courtroom in real time, and pretty much to a person, all of the commentary I saw and I read was talking about how Todd Blanche went on, first of all, endlessly. He was meandering. He didn't seem to have any unified theory to present to the jury, and that can be a real problem when you're just trying to poke holes in every witness's testimony, in all of the documentary evidence, but you don't have an alternate theory to provide the jury. Now, you don't need one. You can just rely on the very high burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt, poke holes and argue, you see, ladies and gentlemen, the government just didn't meet its burden. But it's really hard because the jury wants a theory of what happened here and why they should believe that the person who benefited from these crimes, Donald Trump, shouldn't be held accountable for the crimes that were, by all accounts, committed at his direction and for his benefit. So it doesn't sound like Todd Blanche really won over the jury. In fact, there was some reporting about the demeanor of the jurors, and they didn't really appear to be enjoying or appreciating Todd Blanche's closing argument. Then, when the prosecutor, Mr. Steinglass, got up, by all accounts, he was on his game. He walked them through a chronological account of the evidence, and he argued the inferences they should draw from the evidence, why it was they should first credit the witnesses, to view the corroborating evidence and information as bolstering the testimony of the witnesses, including, importantly, witnesses who remain very fond of Donald Trump, like Hope Hicks, who broke down and cried when she had to reveal some of the information that everybody knew was going to be damaging to Donald Trump. That's the kind of witness that has an inherent credibility about them, because it's clear they don't want to be testifying against somebody that they still have some fondness for. Now, as compared to Michael Cohen, who has no fondness for Donald Trump, but the thing is, Michael Cohen was corroborated in so many ways by other witnesses and by hard evidence, physical evidence, documents, business ledger entries, an undercover recording of Donald Trump and Michael Cohen actually discussing this corrupt scheme that they were entering into together for Donald Trump's political advantage, and perhaps most importantly, a series of $35,000 checks written and signed by Donald Trump to reimburse Michael Cohen for these hush money payments. You know, and I will say, Joshua Steinglass, the prosecutor, got off one line that is a variation on a line that I have used over and over and over again when I had to put cooperating witnesses on the stand. That is, somebody who committed a bunch of crimes, often with the bigger criminal fish. They decide to, turn a corner in their lives. They decide to plead guilty, take responsibility for what they do, and then testify truthfully against their former co-conspirator, the bigger criminal fish. Joshua Steinglass said, ladies and gentlemen, we didn't pick Michael Cohen. In fact, we don't get to go to the witness store and pick the witness we want. I often use as an example, we don't get to go to the witness store and order 3 church-going grandmothers. Yeah, I'll take those 3 church-going grandmothers. Can you have them delivered to the courtroom, and I'm going to have them testify about the crimes of Donald Trump? No, because Donald Trump didn't choose 3 church-going grandmothers as his co-conspirator, his criminal associate, his partner in crime. He selected Michael Cohen, and that's why the prosecutors presented the testimony of Michael Cohen, imperfect human being though he may be. But, he was so well and thoroughly corroborated. By all accounts, coming out of closing arguments, the commentary I heard was that the defense really didn't seem to win any points, and the prosecution really did drive home why the jury should convict Donald Trump of these crimes.
Glenn, there was a moment where Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's attorney, actually committed unethical behavior, and it caused a bit of a melee in the courtroom. Can you speak on what happened there?
So, Brian, Todd Blanche did something that all criminal litigators know not to do. He said to the jury something along the lines of, ladies and gentlemen, you better think twice before sending a man to prison, or before sending our client to prison. And that is so far out of bounds. It is so plainly unethical, and here's why. Judges instruct juries that the matter of punishment in the event of conviction is absolutely not your concern, and you should not allow it to factor into your deliberations or the way you resolve this case. Why? Because the jury is exclusively concerned with whether the evidence that's been introduced during the course of the trial proves guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. It doesn't matter if the defendant may end up going to prison as a result of being found guilty of the crimes. It doesn't matter if the defendant may only get probation. You know, the matter of punishment is not for the jury to concern itself with. So when Todd Blanche said to the jurors, ladies and gentlemen, you better think twice before sending someone to prison, that is so plainly unethical. And Judge Juan Merchan very sternly admonished him. I think that should result in a bar counsel referral for Todd Blanche. I'm not saying that you're going to be disbarred for something you say in the heat of litigation, but you certainly should be sanctioned and you should be held accountable for injecting something that, especially when it involves the case of a former president of the United States, you cannot tell the jury that you should factor into it the possibility of what kind of punishment Donald Trump may face in the event of conviction. It is just dead out of bounds.
Now, Glenn, walk us through what will happen here, because these closing arguments obviously took all day on Tuesday. And so as we head into Wednesday, what can we expect and how long is everything going to take? And give a spectrum here, like quickest scenario and obviously slowest scenario. I think we can guess that the sky's the limit.
Yeah, so first of all, the judge will give the instructions of law to the jury. Judge Merchan said it will take about an hour or so for him to read the instructions of law to the jury, and then they will begin deliberating. Now, it is pure speculation to try to, figure out how long a particular jury might be out, how long they might take to resolve a case. Now, there are some very loose rules of thumb. Some people say that, for every week that a trial has lasted, expect about 1 day of jury deliberation. So that could be, 5, 6, 7 days of deliberation. There is another rule of thumb that I think, in my experience, is one that is pretty reliable. The quicker the verdict is returned, the more likely it is to be a guilty verdict. Because, you're very hard-pressed to see how a case that has been fully investigated, presented to the grand jury, a whole bunch of members of the community, the grand jurors voted in favor of there being enough evidence to bring these criminal charges. It's then been vetted through the courts. Motions to dismiss were filed and rejected by Judge Merchan. It has now been presented to a trial jury. A quick verdict generally means, everybody along the way who was involved in the process of getting this case to trial was right. There was enough evidence to charge, and there was enough evidence to convict. So I've had trials that lasted 2 weeks come back with a verdict in about 45 minutes. That was very quick, but I had it happen. Then again, in lengthy RICO trials, I had jurors stay out for a month before they began delivering verdicts. So I would say, if I had to guess, I wouldn't put any money on it, we're going to see a verdict in anywhere between maybe 2 and 5 days. But, again, it's kind of a fool's errand to try to predict the timing of a jury's verdict.
And in that time, what's going to be happening in the public? Are we just going to be kind of sitting there waiting for white smoke to come out the chimney?
Yeah, lots of talking heads pontificating about what the jurors might be discussing. Donald Trump probably telling lots of lies. He's going to be really on the edge of his seat, probably posting like crazy about, the witch hunt and the angry Democrats, blah, blah, blah. But nobody will know what's going on inside that jury deliberation room. I will say, Brian, if I can give our viewers some insight into what the jury deliberation room looks like when they're all done, because I've been in lots of jury deliberation rooms after a verdict has been returned. And more often than not, what I have seen is, a whole bunch of large white sheets of paper that come from a big old easel, kind of torn off the easel and taped up onto the walls with lots and lots of notations about witnesses and testimony and evidence and arrows pointing all over the place. And, it kind of looks like the scene from a movie, but I have seen that over and over and over again. Because in my experience, jurors, regardless of the nature of the case, high profile, low profile, no profile, which is many, many of the cases I tried over my 30 years as a prosecutor, you see jurors who really take their time with the evidence and they very diligently want to review all the evidence. They want to discuss it and they want to make sure they get it right. I have always been inspired. People always say things like, I would never want to be tried by 12 people who weren't smart enough to get out of jury service. That has never been my view of jury service. I think it's a responsibility. I also think it's an honor. I think better that we, put the fate of a fellow citizen as to whether they committed a crime or not in the hands of other citizens than let some, government functionary make that decision. But what I have seen over my years as a prosecutor is juries really want to thoroughly go through, sometimes exhaustively go through the evidence. And sometimes that means they are back in that deliberation room day after day after day as we all wait for a verdict to be returned.
Okay, well, to your point, Judge Cannon is proving exactly that. I think we would rather have a group of 12 jurors of regular people than one Judge Cannon in that courtroom, regardless of the amount of experience that she has on the bench. With that said, of course, for those watching right now, if you want to follow along with everything that's happening, please make sure to subscribe. Glenn and I will be doing daily comprehensive coverage, both together on the Legal Breakdown and on our respective channels. So if you're not yet subscribed to both of our channels, please make sure to go ahead and subscribe. The links to both of them are right here on the screen. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
And I'm Glenn Kirshner.
You're watching The Legal Breakdown.